Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of On the Prowl podcast. I'm Katie Himes.
I'm Jackson Bauer.
I'm Penelope Pourchier.
And I'm Nolan Hauser. First off, I want to start with, I think the really important discussion, especially in this era of, college sports and marketing and players becoming marketable, is NIL and how players are able to gain NIL deals, whether that comes from their agent, from their schools, from different companies reaching out to them on social media to promote their brand. And I think it's a really important discussion. Just how they do it, I think, is really cool. Whether that be, just posting for the brand that they're promoting, and also, like, I think a really important thing is how they're promoting themselves as like a student athlete off the field as themselves to bring in those brands and attract those brands to want to be with them. And I think that's really important. Um, for all student athletes, whether it be, women's basketball, women's soccer, football, everything. I think it's really important, and it's definitely changed over the last 10 years of how everything in the college landscape is really professional now.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad that you brought that up because I remember my freshman year of high school in my English class, we had to do a debate, and my debate topic was whether college athletes should be paid for their sponsorships. And I was on the pro side, and my argument was, if they're good enough and they're a good, they brand themselves well, they should be able to work with whoever they want to. And, the argument against that was, if you're in college, you shouldn't, it's not a job yet. But I think it's really interesting because social media has made such a presence in our everyday life. And it really is like how you identify yourself, everything that we've talked about in class with like social media convergence and how you know, take pretty much everything of your life and put it on there for literally everyone to see.
Exactly. And what's interesting to me is like I agree with your argument. I think that in this day and age, like college athletes like should be able to get sponsorships with whoever if they want to make some money and represent themselves online with that brand. But now we've come into this space where like now high school athletes have been approved for NIL deals and even certain like seventh and eighth graders. And just from like a strategy and PR standpoint, like how do people that young like manage their identity online like through their sport in such a way where they can do that responsibly? So I just think that's interesting and like a interesting topic of debate for people is like how far are we willing to let this go? Like how young of people should be allowed to have that strong of a presence online? Is that good for them? Is that good for the brand that
Mhm.
they're paired with, you know?
Yeah, and I
Uh,
want to touch on that also, like the high school era of NIL, I guess you could say. I've seen a lot of people from North Carolina come out, and like some of the big players coming out and saying like, we want to change this law. This isn't fair. I don't really agree with that. It's like you're in high school. I guess it's the same topic Catherine just talked about. It's like you're in college. I mean, obviously, you're in college. You have a bunch of people. I mean, playing football, you have a bunch of people watching you. Universities making millions of dollars off
Mhm.
of the sport that you play. So I can kind
Right.
of see where it's like, okay, they should be making money. But then
Mhm.
you go to high school, and it's kind of like high school is should not be about money. High
Mhm.
school is about getting a high school education. It's
yep.
about making friends. When has it ever been about, oh, I'm 16, 17 years old and I'm going to try to make six figures. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't think that's the
Yeah.
right way to go about it. Just, I don't know. I felt like it was an important thing to kind of touch on.
And I
And
kind
even
of just
going,
bouncing
oh,
off.
go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, just kind of bouncing off what Nolan was saying. I definitely agree. Like high school should definitely not be all about the money. I think like maybe your senior year, like looking forward, maybe that's like when you start thinking about like, all right, now I'm going in, I'm making big decisions, going to college. But yeah, high school should definitely not be a student athlete. Like I'm chasing money. It's just make friends, have those early experiences. Because you're kind of, I mean, you're 16, 17 years old, like you said. You're still, enjoy your childhood, man, before you make those
Yeah.
bigger
Yeah.
decisions and whatnot. And then once you get to college, then you can start, you get the more eyes on you, like you said. So that's when you really want to start, like, creating your brand for yourself. So kind of just agreeing with what you said there.
Right. And like everything, I mean, some people go into high school, what, 14, 15 years old. I remember looking back at my Instagram and like Musically or TikTok at the time, I can't remember. And just like now, I'm like, that's so embarrassing. Like, why would I post that? And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And like, expecting athletes who are going to D1, D2, whatever it is, to have that social media presence so young, it's a really touchy subject because one thing, one wrong word, one wrong picture that looks a different way, like that could, you could get canceled or that could end your career or like whatever it is. So I think it's a very touchy subject, and I think, it just really depends on where you're at.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I would definitely say too, I wouldn't put everything on the athletes. And I think it's part of the landscape that, college football has created to where everyone's got to look like this, everyone's got to have this. Like you look up college football on TikTok, and most of it's going to be about money. Like this player's making X amount of money, so you can't really blame the athletes in college or in high school. Sorry for wanting to be like that person, because I know we all wanted to be like somebody when we were younger. But I just wouldn't put it on them. Just I mean agents coming after them, colleges telling them how much they're going to be making. Parents, like some parents pushing their kid to be like, you need to go make money. So I think it's important to point out that it's not all on the athlete. Like there's outside forces that are all pushing them towards making these decisions that could possibly hurt them.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like you
True.
mentioned, agents, the audience, teachers, coaches, your teammates, classmates, I can't even imagine how much pressure that you kind of have to walk perfectly and act perfectly. And then, it really, like, it's a whole lot.
Kind of just going off of that too, like one mistake and the media is gonna know it next day. You know what I mean? So it's like building on that pressure too. Like if you post something and that you'll look back and be like, man, why did I do that? It's like that's probably gonna trickle with you a little bit into your new world in college. So
Yeah. Or even the wrong interpretation. It doesn't even have to be like a mistake on whoever's posting it. Like the audience could take it in a wrong way and run with it. And
absolutely.
that's.
Yeah. I think to kind of boil this all down into a question for you, Nolan, because now I'm just kind of curious about this. As like a college athlete with like such a like high influence like in the Clemson community and beyond, like how are you intentional on social media with like what you post and like what kind of brand you want to have, or like how do you want people to see you online and how do you execute that with what you post?
Yeah. Coach Sweeney says it a lot. It's the three G's. It's like God, Google, and Grandma. If God didn't approve, if you could go to church and show everyone what you're going to post, if it got posted on the front page of Google and you're perfectly fine with it, and if you could sit in your grandma's lap and you could show her what you posted, would she be okay with it? And so you kind of like follow those, kind of funny, like a little funny thing he has, but like if you could follow those, I think like you're in the clear. But obviously, it's you have to remember, like you have people also looking up to you, like kids looking up to you. So the things you comment, like things that you like reels now, like you can see where
Oh
your
my
friends have
God.
liked it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to be
It's
careful. Like that's
crazy,
the
bro. The
first thing that,
digital footprint is crazy.
yes, the things like I'm gonna like, no, I can't like this because then it's gonna pop up on someone else's account, and then it says no one liked this. So just like really being able to, when you're tuned in on social media, it's all fun. Like social media is awesome, but like one misclick, one whatever, and your front page of TigerNet. So I think it's important. I kind of try to keep in mind that I'm a someone is looking up to me, and someone that's younger, whether it be the music I play on a post, whether it be clean or explicit. I kind of go explicit because it's like, okay, I try to just find the cleanest part. Um, but I
Yeah.
think it's really important just to remember that there's younger kids that are looking at you and that are just following after your footsteps.
Yeah, makes sense. Um, and I think it's important to talk about like this from like an individual athlete perspective, like with you like being very intentional about what I'm posting, like following the 3 Gs, as Coach Sweeney would say. But also just like from like a team standpoint, like professional collegiate teams, like their Instagram accounts, there's an added layer of like we're like, okay, these athletes, they have to represent themselves with their individual pages online, but there's an added responsibility of, okay, we as a team have to represent our entire team in an
Yeah.
ethical way and also present ourselves in a way that is engaging to the audience. And you kind of walk this weird line of, staying professional because you are an organization online, but also still being relatable to your audience. Like, working with Clemson football, like our media team, like we have to be very intentional about what we post and how it could be perceived online because we want to make sure that we're representing you guys in the best light possible. Like we don't want to post something that would make any of y'all look bad or that one of y'all might see and be like, oh, I don't like that. Like our account posted that. But also like keeping our fans engaged, keeping them excited and all of that. Like it's a weird line to walk from like a PR strategy standpoint. So now that we've had this like really good conversation about the world of social media and sports online from like a PR strategy ethical standpoint, we're going to bring in Luka Galasso. She is a student worker for Duke football and Duke basketball. And on top of that, she's also done photo shoots and campaigns for individual Duke athletes for NIL purposes, as well as running multiple Duke athletes Instagram accounts to help them from like a brand PR strategy standpoint. She'll be a great person to continue this conversation, and we're excited to have her on. Okay. So today, obviously, we have Luka Galasso joining us today. She has done a lot of work with Duke athletics, specifically Duke basketball and Duke football. We appreciate you being here today to talk with us and kind of let us pick your brain on the world of social media and like the space that you work in. So to kind of like get the conversation started, can you give us a little bit of like your background of how you got started in sports media, how you got involved with Duke, like kind of what your role is on each team, um,
Yeah,
just a little bit of history if that works.
yeah, of course. So I am a senior at Duke right now, and I grew up playing sports. It's always been a huge part of my life. I played volleyball and basketball like all through high school competitively. And I went to a performing arts high school in New York City, which is like a little bit of a non-traditional high school. So I majored in visual arts, so a lot of photography, a lot of painting. So I've always been like very creative and artsy and always loved sports. I got to Duke and I was neuro and pre-law, and I did that for my first year and I was doing well. I just could not see a future in which I would be happy in a traditional 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And so at the end of my freshman year, I called my mom and I said, "Hey, mom, I don't want to live a life like this. Like, I want a fun job."
Mhm.
And she's like, "Okay, what does that mean?" I was like, "I don't know. I'll figure it out." Um, so we here at Duke, we have a bunch of opportunities for students to apply to different on-campus jobs. And I saw a football one and I was like, okay, this sounds kind of interesting. Like I'm not quite sure like where I would fit in with this. I applied for the job. At the time, I was also a student in Duke's TikTok class, which is a
Oh
series of
yeah.
classes that are taught by a professor here, which is like how to go viral on social media.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, maybe there's a world in which I'm doing like social media stuff for the football team. Like that would be cool. Um, so their social media team got back to me and said, hey, like this sounds like it would make a lot of sense. Like, why don't you come in? So I started taking, nobody was really paying attention to our TikTok when I started at Duke football, which is like kind of typical. Like each team has like a platform that it kind of neglects and like doesn't care about as much.
Yeah.
And it was a team of 3 guys, and none of them really cared to like put effort or attention into it, which is fine. So they gave me a lot of creative freedom to take that and run with it. Um, so my first year, I grew the account from about 90K to 290K,
Whoa.
which was really fun. Just like
Yeah.
lots of fun, like trendy, stupid little stuff, but it ended up kind of growing a lot bigger. And then through that, there was just other opportunities at Duke with other athletic teams. Duke basketball, I'm now working with for the past 2 years, and other just like athletic things around campus. But that's kind of how I got my start. Um, yeah, I was just always like very creative driven and very sport driven. And I was like, okay, how can I figure out how to combine these two things while I'm on campus? And unfortunately, at Duke, we don't have any undergrad classes that are business related or sports related. There's like maybe one or two, and they're really hard to get into. And there's no, like, we don't have communications as a major, we don't have journalism as a major. So there's nothing that I could have done that would have aligned me to work in sports. So it was more on my own, figuring out what I could do outside of my classes to set me up for that.
Yeah. Wow. I honestly, that surprises me a lot that Duke doesn't have more class offerings like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sure like you kind of having to figure that out on your own and kind of like use a process of like trying and failing over and over again to see what works and what didn't. Um, Probably like if I had to guess, like helped your creative process a lot.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. It was for sure overwhelming at first because it's scary to not have like academic validation for what you want to do.
Right.
And for anyone who is in college and is interested in something that's beyond the scope of like, I want to go to med school, I want to be a lawyer, like something that has a very clear, okay, you do this, then you do this, then you do
Right.
this. It's very hard to kind of see outside of that and even like to get advice from people outside of that.
Hmm.
Like I didn't have professors that I could really ask questions to. I didn't know anyone in the industry. So I really just relied on the people that worked for our athletic teams that I was interning for. And I was so like it was terrifying to not really have boundaries and for them to just say like just take the TikTok and run with it. But it did help me
Right.
grow so much that I could really experiment and like yeah, I like had some times where I like maybe made a mistake and it's because I didn't know. Like I was completely
Mhm.
just going in blind. But it was definitely good for learning to just start and just like dive full into it.
Right. That makes so much
I
sense.
think
I'm gonna go ahead. Ethan just joined the waiting room. I'm gonna admit him. We'll see if he can like speak. If not, if he has any questions, I'm sure he'll put them in the chat and then we can read them out loud. But
Okay.
This
I'm
will be
glad that
good.
you said I'm glad that you said something about academic validation because I think that is something, at least for me, that's very prominent. And I think I would say, I don't know, I would assume a lot of people would think about that. And
Yeah.
with you having the freedom of just having the creative freedom of doing anything you want on TikTok, did you feel that kind of validation with the improvement and increasing followers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sports media is very much a numbers game. And I mean, when you're dealing with big teams that have big accounts, like it just comes down to like how well did that piece of content perform overall. And so, I mean, when I took over the account, we were mostly posting like edits that were going on other platforms. So like our recaps that were like Instagram Reels. And they weren't doing well because they weren't being catered to TikTok, for example, or they weren't being catered to Reels. And so they weren't performing well. And so like my first couple of videos, I mean, even my first video, like you could instantly see the jump of engagement. And it wasn't anything insane, but it was like our TikToks had been getting maybe like 15,000 to 20,000 views. There was like a standout one. And then it was like the first one I posted, it had like 80,000. And then the next one was 200,000. And then it kind of grew. So yeah, for sure, I got so much validation from seeing those numbers and just from talking to people around the organization. People started getting really excited about it. Because players like that kind of stuff, and there hadn't been that excitement about like, oh, what's the TikTok today going to be? And so once people started asking around, like, oh, hey, what are we doing today? Or like, can I do a TikTok dance? It was like, okay, so the guys care about this and our staff cares about this, and clearly other people are starting to care about it. So maybe I should just continue with it.
Okay, so the players did enjoy it. They weren't bothered by it. They kind of fed into it.
No. And I was very grateful. Each team of every organization I've worked for, it like has a personality. And I was really grateful that when I took it over, we had some big personalities on our team. And like we had guys that were like TikTok dancers and like loved social media and loved being the star. And so they were just more than willing to like jump in and make themselves look stupid. And that made my job so much easier. as compared to like dealing with athletes that are a little bit more difficult to like coax into it. So they were amazing to help and get that started.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Ethan. There he is. Hey, Ethan. Awesome.
Okay,
Awesome
next
team.
question. How do you maintain a consistent visual identity across photo shoots? Because I know like you've done a lot of things with football. I mean, like just you talking about that you grew that account like by 200,000 followers, like insane. And so now you're doing stuff with basketball. Obviously, those are two very different sports, but you're maintaining a similar like identity online with both those because it is Duke. Um,
Yeah.
so when you're kind of planning like TikToks or things that you're going to post or photo shoots, how do you maintain that consistency but keeping the individual like team identity, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Um, the consistently part, at least aesthetically, it kind of writes itself in a way
Yeah.
because Duke is very, and like you get that at any professional organization, like the logos are everywhere and the colors are everywhere, and it's very easy to at least visually get like aestheticness and like a similar vibe across all of our teams and all of our platforms. So that kind of just organically fell in. I mean, simple things like using the same fonts on our videos, stuff like that. That's just like there are little things that like made it super recognizable. Um, in terms of like the identity of the teams, they are a little bit different, and I it's a little bit different for every team that I work for. Football was very much like we we weren't getting any female viewers, and we had a lot of and like this sounds so weird to say if you don't like understand like media and marketing, but like the most effective way to get a piece of content to go viral is a thirst trap. And like that's a thing that everyone does across every and like you might not even realize that you're watching a thirst trap, but even just like the difference between having our players do a video with their shirts on and their shirts off was such a big thing.
Yeah.
And not to over sexualize them or anything. I mean, like these are guys that like have big egos and love walking around with their shirts
Oh.
off and whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
little stuff like that, like for football, that was a huge part of our growth and identity is like our guys love to dance, they love to be
Mhm.
silly, they love to be like the little bit like ego, like bubble headed, like look at us, we're so cool. Whereas our basketball team's identity is a lot more like hard to reach, like we're
Mhm.
tough.
Mhm.
We want to be respected. So the perspective was a little bit there different there. So like I would never make a basketball player do like a shirtless TikTok dance. It just wouldn't make sense for our team and our brand and just
Mm-hmm.
like the level of that team. But it was to my benefit in a way that Duke football was not a football school. And I say this because there's a pressure that comes with being a high performing athletic team, and not that we're not a high performing athletic team, but we kind of could make fun of ourselves in a way because of like the way that we played. And like the first video I ever posted on the account was right around when some schools were talking about leaving the ACC. And it was a bunch of our guys like dancing, and then the caption that I put on it was like us when teams are so afraid to play us that they try to leave the conference. Like, and it wasn't like a, oh yeah, Clemson's afraid to play us, but like we allowed the doors to open for people to kind of make fun of us. And obviously it's a very like I'm in control of that. I know that people are going to rage bait in the comments and like make that a big thing, but football had the capacity for us to do that and to make ourselves kind of like the clowns of football in a way, and then also have like the on-field like, oh wait, maybe they're getting better, they're kind of good. Whereas basketball has like this prestige that you kind of have to maintain no matter what, like season after season.
That
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that each team kind of has their own, like, well, I guess in the case of football, it didn't really have a specific online identity. You were able to kind of craft that,
Yeah.
and pioneer that. But with basketball, like, it had a clear, like, set online identity of this is how we want to be seen. Therefore, this is how content needs to be produced. And it's almost sounds like formulaic in a way, like, this is how we're going to stick to this brand. But it's
Yes.
cool that with football, it's like you kind of embrace this idea of like at the end of the day, engagement is engagement, whether that's good or bad. So let's just be like funny and self-aware and take advantage. Like it's so cool that you kind of like capitalized on that.
Yeah.
And we're able to create like a lighthearted, like relatable identity online because of that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you.
I'm gonna jump in here really quick, and while we're on the topic, are you ever nervous that, you kind of create a punchy video, and are you ever nervous that it's going to be taken the wrong way? Or like
For sure.
Penelope said, like whether it's good or bad, it's still engagement.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% went into it, and I still go into everything that I do with like no publicity is bad publicity.
Mhm.
But when you're working with athletic teams, like it applies, but then it doesn't. There's like strict no-nos, and then there's like this gray area that you can kind of mess with. And like once I'm in it, it's like, like some people might have a problem with it, and some people might not. Um, I've been very fortunate to not have posted anything so controversial that I've like gotten in trouble or gotten fired or whatever the case is. But yes, I have pushed that boundary. I would say the biggest one, and this was like a big one. This was 2 years ago, right when Caitlin Clark was starting to become very popular. And I asked our guys after practice. This was like right before March Madness started. Like everyone was talking about her, and I said, if you played Caitlin Clark in a game of 1v1, what would the score be and who would win? And I knew that most of the guys were going to be cocky and be like, oh, I would win, no doubt. She sucks, whatever. Um, and that's what we did. And a lot of the guys said, like, I would win 21-0, like, I'm a football player, like, whatever. And then some of the guys said, no, like, she would beat me, but I'd score some points. Like, it wouldn't be horrible. Um, I posted it at 3 o'clock, I want to say. And by like 8 a.m. the next morning, there was like maybe 5 articles that was like, Duke football is sexist and like hates women. And it, it was a lot. Thankfully it was like not mainstream like media platforms, but there was like little small articles here and there about it. Um, People like tagging her saying, please go to Duke and like play these guys one on one. Um, and it would people were very angry about it. So I've definitely played with that line a little bit. But I think in media and I just think in entertainment in general and like comedy is a huge place where you see this. Like you have to be able to like poke fun at each other and you have to be able to like as someone who works in media, which is like in my opinion the modern extension of advertising, like
Mhm.
you have to be a little bit of a manipulative like puppeteer behind the scenes. Like I know when people are going to get mad at something that I'm posting and I know when I'm doing it for the views and I know kind of like right where the cusp is that people will be angry but they won't like riot. So that kind of stuff you definitely have to mess with. And like certain teams do it, and certain teams are like, no, we hate that. Don't ever do that on our page. And again, like I was very fortunate to have the creative freedom to where my bosses were like, sure, just don't like say anything crazy. So yes, to answer your question in a long way, I definitely have teetered that line before.
That's great.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have another question for you, Luca. So what is something that you think most people wouldn't realize or often overlook about working for such like a high visibility program?
Yeah. Um, that's a tough question. And I'm trying to find a politically correct answer because there's obviously some stuff that I can't share with you guys and the world.
She's
Yeah.
media trained.
Um, um, I think just like there's so many different decisions that go into every little decision.
Mm.
And whether it's media, whether it's like what the guys are eating for breakfast or like what airport we're gonna like there's so many little decisions that function around a team's performance that you would never think of as a fan or even as someone who works in sports and you're maybe like behind the scenes and like doing other things that you would never realize. And I think working so closely with teams has started to open me up to all that. Um, and especially like as a fan, you don't think about all the things that go into your fan experience, but it's like, no, like 10 people are deciding, what t-shirt is going to be the t-shirt that is tossed to you at a certain thing, and like there's a reason why they chose that one. And for
Mhm.
me it's 20 hours of, okay, these are all the videos we have, which one has to go on which day and why, like what's coming up that I need to start hinting at, or like I don't know, it kind of, from a media perspective, it reminds me so much. I've been like, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. I'm just gonna say that now. I like don't dislike her, but I'm not like a Swiftie. But all the lore behind like the thought that she puts into her album releases and like all the little hints that she drops and stuff like that is just, there's so much behind the scenes that goes on in sports teams that like you would never know about as a fan, but they're really like the small decisions end up being really important. And I'm sorry if that's not a juicy enough answer for you, but I
No,
can't
that's
like
fine.
dive deep into too much of like specific details, but yeah, that's all I would say.
Yeah. No, that
Absolutely.
makes sense. And I get there's so much that you can't say, like just to like the
Yeah.
general public. Totally understand. Um,
Yeah.
but I agree. I think that's something that most fans like at a surface level don't see or aren't thinking about is like just how much thought goes into every little part of like events or game days or media day shoots or anything of the like. And kind of going off on like game days and preparation media days, what is your preparation process like for a game day versus like a media day or something like that?
Yeah. Um, so it's different depending on the team and then also kind of on the event. For media day and stuff like that, it's so much easier because it's just like I like I will swear on this, like the best way to be successful in sports media is to be obsessed with your phone, and
Mhm.
like you have to constantly be scrolling, like you have to know what's trending, you have to be reading what ESPN just said is the hottest new, like you need to know everything that's going on in every part of pop culture to like make something really relevant and viral.
Mhm.
Um so leading up to media day, it's just like scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Like I'm looking at my TikToks. Okay, what's trending? Like what sounds are going viral? What kind of stuff can I do? Is there anything that like is maybe an old trend, but that I want to bring back for a certain reason? So stuff like that is a lot easier to plan, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Game days are interesting. So in football season, we don't really post
Mhm.
other than in-game feed. This is the touchdown, here you go. And that's just for purposes of like the players' schedules different. Like we try to like keep them as focused as possible, try not to post silly little stuff in season. Basketball content is very different because it writes itself. Um, like for example, I'll post like a short form video in game, and I can't know what that's going to be until the play happens. So like
Mhm.
I can't know if I'm making like a specific player who popped off and I'm doing like a recap of him, or if there was like an insane dunk that I'm going to clip with a photo of like Jordan or something.
Right.
So it's kind of a balance between like having some ideas set already, but also like still like knowing all that pop culture stuff in your head so that when something happens in a game, you're like, oh, wait, that reminded me of blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm going to make that later. So, like, I don't know, this somewhere someone did like the Steph Curry, like, night night thing. And like, I had to know, like, okay, that's Steph Curry. Let's go get a picture of that and then stitch it with this video. But I wasn't going to know that was happening until in game.
Mhm.
So yeah, just like staying ready. Prepping as much beforehand, like looking at other team stuff. Like sports media is so much like everyone's stealing everyone's ideas, and that's fine. It's like who does it the best, and like we can all grow from it. But looking at other, not college sports so much, because they're still kind of picking up on that front, but like professional teams, like, okay, what did the Celtics post this week? Was there any trend that they got on that I should get on? Um, let's go look at the LA Chargers. Like, did they post anything silly and creative that I can get on? Stuff like that.
Mhm. Do you think like athletes themselves, like, do you think, or what do you think is like the most common mistake you think like athletes make when it comes to like posting about their NIL deals or like that kind of related content? Do you think they make
Yeah.
mistakes in some way?
Yeah, so just a little bit of context with Duke basketball, I wasn't actually working on the team accounts until this season. Last season, I worked with three of their players and I ran the social media accounts for those three players. So I more worked with them individually.
Hmm.
The biggest problem in collegiate sports with athletes who want brand deals and are not getting them or don't understand is they're just not posting enough and they're not posting enough about them that has nothing to do with their sport.
Mm.
And I'll talk to athletes all the time who are like, hey, I want this deal. And I'm like, okay, let me see your Instagram. And then it's like two pictures of them, like one with a friend and like one engaged. Like it's just not like they're not thinking about like the brand and they're not thinking about that they're marketing themselves essentially on their social media. So like if a brand can't go to your page and tell like what you like based off just scrolling through some of your posts, then like you're invaluable to them essentially. Then it's like a treasure hunt to try to figure out who you are and like that's just not easy or accessible. So we have a women's basketball player right now who she is one of the only players in women's college basketball who can dunk. And that is such a big thing. And I'm like, you need to make videos of yourself dunking different things, like different objects. And I can't recall who it was, but someone in one of our conversations said you should do dunking every day until Dunkin' Donuts gives me a deal. Like
That's a
stuff
good
like
one.
that. So just like athletes kind of are expecting one, brands to come to them, and two, like that they don't actually have to do anything once they secure that brand deal. No, that's not how it works, and that's not how advertisements work. Like you have to have a platform that is worthy of having the deal promoted on your platform, and then you have to actually promote it once you get the deal. Like it doesn't just come to you and you get the free shirt. Like what are you doing with that once you have it is important.
I'm gonna jump in and ask. I know, obviously, you said you managed a couple of individual athletes' Instagrams. You came into Duke and you applied for that job. What came first, and how did you like? Did you apply for the job and then start Instagrams with individual athletes, or the other way around? And then how did that kind of blossom?
Yeah. So I got the job with Duke football first. And then I want to say about a year later, so the TikTok class that I mentioned that's part of Duke, there's a couple different variations of that. And one of them that we like really developed is one where we have students who are interested in doing what I do, and then we have student athletes. And each athlete is paired with a group of students that can help them work on their social media accounts for the whole semester. Um, so I helped teach that class and I was in that class, and that's part of how I got connected with Duke basketball. So I started working with those three players through that class and then extended past it. And then that grew my connection with Duke basketball directly. I wasn't interested, in the beginning at least, in working for Duke basketball directly. And that's just because you already have 6 million followers. You already get 800,000 views on a video. Like my impact in your organization for your social media is going to be like virtually nothing. Um, and that's just like the magnitude of people that already care about your account. But like you have athletes who maybe they're one and done, maybe they're going to be here for 3 years and they need to like capitalize on the fact that you guys have 6 million followers and people care about who your, you know, bench warmer shooting guard is like. And so that is valuable for them to capitalize on while they're here. And so then after that, this year, the person who kind of did what I do for Duke basketball graduated, and then so they brought me on. I'm still working with one of our Duke basketball players, just one on one, and then a couple women's basketball players. But it kind of is just a natural progression. And I think at any university, it's similar. Like athletics is very close knit here. And Duke is not as big as you would assume it is. I mean, our undergrad is 7,000 maybe campus you can walk across in 10 minutes. So our athletic community is literally all just like jammed into one like 1 mile radius that you can just walk to the next office and talk to people. And so it was really easy to kind of naturally progress from football into basketball. And now I'm doing a bunch of stuff with other athletic teams. And so it kind of just worked itself out.
That's great. I think some people would think the TikTok class is kind of silly and like unproductive, but I think that's such a brilliant concept, especially in 2025. I know that's like a lot of the where I get my news and all my
Mhm.
content. I think that's such a brilliant idea.
Yeah. I agreed. And I was in it as a student and I was this is my freshman year. I was so lost and I was horrible and I had like 400 followers and it like flopped and it was terrible and I was in Jared McCain's class. So it was like me, Jared, a couple other basketball players and so I was like what am I doing here? Like how am I in this class?
Right.
Um and then it wasn't until like a couple months later that I decided I was going to do what I did and then I could kind of work on growing my own stuff again after I started developing like for other teams. But yeah, it's an amazing class and I love it. And our students love it. And they use it for all different kinds of things. And people come in and say, hey, one day I want to have a nonprofit, blah, blah, blah. Like, can I start now, like promoting it? So yeah, it's been super fun to be in it and then now teach it and see like all the generations of TikTok class that have now like passed on and are taking it. So
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned Jared McCain. Did you ever get to work with him directly?
I did not. I was very, so this is my freshman year when I was taking this class. Before I started working in sports, I was very introverted. I would have considered myself. Um, and I did not, when I was in that class, I was kind of just like a fly on the wall, like was just listening, like wasn't really communicating with people. And again, I didn't have an interest in sports quite yet then, at least professionally. So I just missed him and then picked up after him. But yeah, I think he's been such a big part of like why people in the industry are like, okay, like maybe it is really important for our athletes and even our teams to focus on this stuff.
Definitely. On that note of like things that a lot of other places like might be overlooking that they're just now being like, oh wait, that's actually like really smart. Like the way that Jared McCain has branded himself. And I'm sure like taking a course about TikTok and how to promote yourself online, like helped a lot with those kinds of things. What are other trends or other ideas or things that like could be getting capitalized on right now that you feel like brands aren't paying enough attention to or sports teams aren't paying enough attention to?
Yeah. Um, I mean, everyone's kind of like every industry ever is like a little bit slow to kind of pick up on certain things, and that's just because they're so big that it like takes a while to like fully take over. um like TikTok grew and became such a big thing so quickly, but now it's kind of reverting back to Instagram, which has been very interesting. Um so like even that like okay, do we continue to focus on TikTok? Do we shift back to Instagram? Do we shift to YouTube now? Just kind of figuring out like what is like the it for right now is always a little bit challenging. I also think like I think and I mean I can't like say for sure because every team is going to do this differently and every league is going to do this differently, but I think that there's going to be more and more of like a transformation of social teams and media from like the admin interviewing a player and like what's your favorite whatever style questions to more like we see players evolving as creators, we see players initiating things on team accounts. And they're always going to be athletes first, but I think you're going to start getting more athletes that are creator focused and like are interested in doing things like that. Um, so like we did a little bit, we're starting to do a little bit of that here. Um, like at basketball, we have this big like basketball countdown event and we gave one of our players meta glasses. So like from his, it was like now we are starting to see things a little bit from his perspective versus like a third person kind of filming perspective.
Mm,
So I think that switch from like the third person to the first person, like, hey, I'm the athlete and you're gonna come with me, is gonna be a lot more prevalent like once more athletes start becoming comfortable with like the rise of social media.
that makes a lot of sense. And I think that actually ties really well into things that we've been talking about in our sports media class is like
Mhm.
fans want to feel like they know the athlete. They want to kind of get
Yeah.
a chance to relate to them, be in their shoes, see what their experience is like. And so I think your prediction of like things are going to continue moving from showcasing the athletes to the athletes showcasing themselves makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense and will increase fan engagement.
Yeah, and I've started to try to do it a little bit more like we did. We're doing more photo shoots we do a uniform reveal every week for football. And like putting my phone on point five and like giving it to our players and
Yeah.
being like, you vlogged today. Like, let's see like what you like, what are you guys like when I'm not there? And especially like being a girl, sometimes it's like, okay, I don't know if the them that I'm getting is like the authentic them in a way.
Mm.
So like what is this team like when nobody's in the room and like you guys are just with the camera and like there's not a media person prompting you and you're just walking around with the guys, like we want to see that. So trying to prompt them into that a little bit more as much as I can.
That's great. I have a quick question for, and I don't know, you might not be able to answer this, and that's totally fine. But with, you mentioned, you got the players to use meta glasses and like have that first person perspective. If you say like we're using meta glasses for this video, do you have to have the sponsorship? Will that like cost you extra money, or is that just like totally fine, like free for all?
No, we don't have to. I don't think that we actually officially stated that they were meta glasses in the video. It was just like POV, like you're at whatever. So, I mean, it could have been any camera. It could have been like a handheld camera. It's just for convenience. Like, this is a
Right.
big dude. He's not a professional. Like, let's not give him a $10,000 camera. Here's some glasses, like
Yeah.
type of situation. Um, but no, and NCAA teams are a little bit like the sponsorship and the ads and all that stuff is not like a traditional like it functions differently than like a creator would where it's like, oh, I have meta glasses, like this is a sponsorship, I'm doing this with my meta
Right.
glasses. Teams don't really do that as much. Like, you're sponsored by Nike, you're sponsored by Gatorade, like whatever. But you don't really get those like
It'd
small
be more
stuff
like
like that you
specific
showcase on.
athletes.
Yes. Yeah, so if it was for the
Okay.
player, like
Awesome.
maybe we could have said, hey, this dude's wearing meta, he would have posted it on his personal and said, hey, I'm wearing meta glasses to whatever. That could have been a partnership, but not on the team account.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So I
Yeah.
just had a question to start wrapping things up because we're kind of running a little bit out of time here. But what advice would you give students who want to work in your area, like content creation or like athletics media? My bad.
Yeah. Um, I am very, very, very fortunate that I started this at Duke.
Mm.
And I am so aware that that's not a typical pipeline. Not everyone is fortunate to go to a Big Ten school or a Power Five school or whatever it is. Um, and then also like be able to walk in the office and be like, hey, I want to do TikTok for you guys. And they're like, yeah, here you go. I'm very aware of that. So it looks different for other people than it might have for me. If you're in college, like it is more or less like people want to help you when you're in college. And unless you're like you have no experience and you want to go work for Alabama football, like it might be a little bit different. But for the most part, like you will have somewhere that you can go on campus to apply for like on campus jobs. That's just like a one and done. I feel like the internet is such a good place to learn now. So I don't think not having any experience is like a good excuse. You can go on YouTube, you can start learning about like certain media trends. You can go on, TikTok and start learning about everything. So you don't have to walk into the room like completely. I don't like have any experience. I don't have any knowledge. I just want to do this. Um, but really, like the biggest thing is just getting yourself in the door, like sending emails to like every social media admin for every team at every university is posted online. Like you can find their email, you can reach out to them, you can say, hey, can I shadow you? Like you don't have to ask for the job straight up, obviously. Um, I get a lot of messages from people on social media that are high school students that like want to do this. Um, and for them, I'm partly like, you're in high school, like you have a lot of time and like your interests might change, but just say yes to everything. Like no job that you start in sports will be too small. And you're not exempt from getting your dream job in sports just because you went to a smaller school with like a lesser known team. And I think people don't realize that. Um, so people that are like going to community colleges or maybe they're at a school that like sports is not a big thing, like I was really excited about working with football. Yes, it's Duke, but because the team's presence online was was less. And so I just encourage people to constantly think that whatever team you're getting started with, um, like you can still grow in, and the smaller the team, like the more room you have to grow. And like the smaller the following that they have when you pick it up is like the more you will be recognized for growing it when you do grow it. So just start somewhere, like start anywhere, work in, be an equipment manager, like just start to get yourself around and in the environments that you want to. And it'll kind of like once you're in them, will naturally progress if it's meant to.
That's great.
Absolutely.
I
It's
think
great advice.
it's what people a lot of times forget is this whole concept of like closed mouths don't get fed. So many people are like, well, I don't know anything about this. So like even if like I like asked around to try to do this or I applied to this position, I probably won't get it anyway. This person
Yeah.
probably won't respond to me. But it's like you have to try. Like you have to keep like reaching out to people. Try to get any positions that you can. And also like you
Yeah.
said, no position is too small. No place you're starting at is too insignificant. Um,
Right.
that's really good advice.
Yeah. And I also just, I wrestle with this a lot because there's people who want to work in the sports industry who don't actually want to work in the sports industry. They just
Mm,
are a fan.
yeah,
And there's a big difference between I love the Boston Celtics and I want to spend every holiday and every night and every whatever doing social media for the Boston Celtics. Um, and so I encourage people to start small because if you hate it when you're doing it one day a week at your whatever school, when you're, missing holidays and you're out on weekends and you're working late nights and you're working until 2 a.m. for Sunday night football and stuff like that, like you need to really love it and you need to love it for the right reason. So I think starting small is always better because I'd rather you start small and be like, okay, I don't like this, no harm, no foul, than like walk into a school and like figure out that you don't love it and then you're working with a big team that has a big reputation and then their social media is like hanging out to dry. And whatever like field this is, even if it's not media, you have to understand that big teams and big names, big organizations come with big responsibility. And so there's literally no harm in just working your way up and figuring out like, do I really like this? Do I really, enjoy this area of my like the pipeline of people that are like, oh, I want to do sports, training and then decide they want to be front office and then they decide they want to do media. So just like experiment with things, mess around with things, and just don't take it too seriously unless you really need to and you're getting to a point in your career that you feel like this is really what I want to do.
that's really great advice. And like I don't know, like I do some similar stuff with Clemson football. And a lot of like people, like especially Clemson fans, will come to me and be like, "Oh, like your job must be so cool. Like you get to go to all these games and like be behind the scenes and do all this and that." And I'm like, "Yes, like it's great, but it's also my job. Like it's not
Yeah.
like I'm just like getting to be in the facility and like doing like whatever, like just being around the guys. Like no, I'm
Yeah.
working." And it's like you said,
Um,
you have to love it. Like people forget that it is a major time commitment. So I
right.
appreciate you touching on that because it is something that like people really need to think about if this is an industry they want to.
Yeah. And it just ties back to the whole like there's so many little decisions that go into small decisions that people don't realize. Cause like, yeah, it was a silly little TikTok, but like there was a reason that we chose that one. And that silly little 30-second TikTok that made you giggle and share with your friends took, an hour to film and then it took 10 minutes of video editing to cut down into 30 seconds. And there's more behind it than I think a lot of people who see the glamour and are like, oh, I want to do this, are imagining when they first start.
It's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're just about out of time here, but really great insights from you, Luca. Like we appreciate you so much. I would say this is
hard.
like one of the best interviews we've had, just like advice wise. Like you clearly have so much knowledge about this industry. And I think a lot of it is tied to like the fact that like you've been in this like firsthand for multiple years now and just like figuring it out on your own and coming up with ideas and what works and what doesn't. Um, and that's really cool to see. Like now you're kind
Yeah,
of like living with the results of that, and that's really cool. So again,
yeah,
we appreciate your time. Thank you
of
so much for
course.
being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for your
Also, like,
perspective.
I am y'all's age. Like, I am a college student. People forget
Yeah.
this and they're like, oh, are you like in your 30s? I'm like, no, I'm 21. Like, I'm in college. I just turned 21. Like, I'm learning how to drink, all this stuff. So, like, if you guys ever want to talk or if you need advice or if, like, you seriously considering stuff like this, I don't know. I feel like when I talk about what I do, people are like, oh, she's been post grad for 5 years. And I'm like, no, I haven't even sorted out my post grad offers yet. Like, we're still in the process, so I'm like going through all this as well and like trying to take my own advice as much as possible. But if any of you ever want to like talk longer or if you need advice or if you're like, hey, I need an internship, like hook me up with your team, like we can figure it out. But yeah, if any of you want to talk like outside of this, I'm always happy to talk to people and just stay connected.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Your
Thank you.
perspective was amazing, and it is great to talk to another college student, especially at another school. I mean, that we, obviously play. It's cool to see the
No.
inside part of it.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
also the
I'm
same.
sorry. I'm
You just,
sorry. I can't believe that we beat you. I was
It's
just,
a
oh
little
were
my
you all
crazy,
at
God.
the
a little
game?
crazy, but
Were all of you at the game?
yeah,
I
yeah.
I was not at that game that day. I was listening to on the radio and it was just a lot of back and forth.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I
There
will
was
say
like,
though, like y'all were definitely like a worthy opponent. Like it was pretty like neck and neck the
it
entire
Yeah.
time.
was. It
Yeah.
was.
I don't know. What do you think? Was that offensive PI or defensive PI?
Okay, so you know what it is? It wasn't a PI, but if you watched, like when they show the replay, they show like the last 5 seconds of the clip, right? If you watch the whole play, your dude's arm was like up Queso's shirt the whole first half of the play. And then right when they throw it, he's like, no, no, I wasn't touching him. And then of course that's the part that they show. So if you watch the beginning of the play, it was definitely something. I don't know if it was a PI, but there was definitely some beef going on down there. I
Hmm.
am just gonna agree with it because I think that there was some other. It played out how it was supposed to play out.
Did you post a TikTok saying this is what really happened?
Oh
You
my
heard it here
God.
first.
Oh my
Lucas says
goodness.
so.
Yep.
I thought about it. I posted, our comments were so funny. I posted a video of us in the locker room after that. Our players were going insane. They were
Oh my
screaming, like, walk in your trap, take over your trap.
God.
And I posted it. And your whole, like, every Clemson fan ever was like, screw you. You guys suck. That wasn't a PI. Like, the refs won. Um, yeah, it was insane. I also like posted sometime in the first quarter because I like posted on my own socials. I posted like the dudes that were doing like the shirtless like shirt situation.
Oh yeah.
I love those
And by the
guys.
time like the third quarter came around, like I'd gotten an DM from ESPN and they were like, "Hey, like are you a Clemson student? Like can we repost this?" And I was like, "I'm not a Clemson student, but you can repost it. Like that's fine. You can have the video." Yeah, it was such a cool environment and I mean, it was fun to be there. I'd never, other than like UNC, Wake Forest, like NC State, I'd never like traveled with our football team to another game that far, so it was really fun.
I'm trying to remember if like okay, so yeah, I think I connected with you through Ate, so you know that I know him. But
Yeah.
I was there like with my parents and a bunch of like me and Ate's friends, and like they called him after the game while he was in the locker room, and he was just like screaming, "Walking your trap, take over your trap!" Like it was
Yeah.
so funny. I was like the Clemson fan in me was like kind of dying inside, but like
Oh
it,
my
it
God.
was still cool though. And then to see that get like posted afterward, I was like, "Oh, yep."
Yeah,
I
you
remember
guys are
that.
mean though. I was so right during that like whole PI situation. I was standing in the end zone, like right next to your student section, like at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing bright blue. There's like
Oh,
nobody near me wearing blue. And like I start getting cussed at, and like people are like throwing things at me and like cursing at me. And I'm like,
oh my
I
I'm
will
just like
say
taking
our
photos.
God.
our
Don't
And it
paint
was
the
campus has been a little
insane.
bit
messenger.
on edge this year.
It was
It seems like there's
insane.
always that one part.
Your
Sorry, but
mascot is like standing next to me, like poking at my camera, and like your mascot stole my phone and ran around the stadium for 20 minutes with my phone.
awesome.
So if anyone knows who that
That's good
person
stuff.
is,
Oh my gosh. Well, I apologize on behalf of our student section and
no, it
the
was fun.
Tiger. I know,
It's
yeah,
okay.
I'm sure it was like really entertaining, but like, oh my God, like they were, I guess they just were not joking around that day. That's so funny.
It was very entertaining, but no,
Clemson
tomorrow.
fans aren't really used to losing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, our
It's
egos
been
were
a tough
definitely a little
one.
bruised. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
tomorrow we play Virginia, and if we win, we should be ACC championship. So I'm very excited.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That'd be
And
so
then
cool. Are you gonna get
our
to travel if we go, y'all go to the championship?
yes.
Ah, that's so cool.
So I'm
that's
very
awesome.
excited. I will also be going. We have a couple players going to the draft this year. I'm not sure if there'll be green room, maybe like one or two of them. So we'll be at the draft this year, which will be super fun
That's
because we like
awesome.
haven't had a green room player in a long time.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's great talking to you guys. Again, like
Yes.
you can
Yes,
just
thank you
text
so
me.
much.
You have my
Thank you.
number, Penelope, but if
Yes.
any of you like want to text or whatever, that's fine.
Amazing. I'll
Awesome.
probably
That's
Thank you.
awesome.
share your number with these two at the
Yeah,
end of the day in case they want to ask you any more questions or talk to you. But yeah, I
sure.
really appreciate you and good luck on the rest of y'all season. As much as it hurts me to say it, like good luck. We wish y'all the best.
Yeah, of course.
We're
And can you remind me,
supportive.
like, is this for a project or just like an assignment? Is
Yeah. So essentially the project is we run like a little podcast within our class and we like produce a couple episodes. So this is like episode 4 of our podcast. So we'll be
okay.
using this for that. But yeah, we really
That's so
We'll send you
cute.
the
Well, if
YouTube
there's any
link.
like final thing that I can look at, I would love to, but don't feel
yeah.
obligated to share anything with me. But yeah,
Well, I'll send you the link to the final video if you want to take a look at it. But yeah, no.
wonderful. Okay. All right, guys.
Awesome.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank
You
Thank
too.
you. All
Bye.
right.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
That wraps up our 4th and final episode of On the Prowl. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching and listening today. We hope you enjoyed our discussion along with our interview with Luka Galasso. She was an incredible guest today. We appreciate her so much. And even though this is our last episode, I will say, like, at least in my opinion, this was a really great, like, experience to have, like, making these podcast episodes, making these connections with people in the industry. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed.